So once the approval workflow is enabled, we can start using it. And I will demonstrate this by making, of course, a couple of examples. So because I've enabled the purchase order approval workflow, I will, of course, create a number of purchase orders. So let me start with a first one. So I will click here on New to create a new purchase order. Let's say that we are purchasing from vendor 20,000. And we're ordering some items. So for example, item 1900S. So if I scroll a little bit to the right, you can see that the item has a price of 97.50. So if I order, for example, 15 items, you can see, of course, that the document amount will exceed my limit amount, because my limit amount, remember, is 1,000. So this means that I have that I require an approval for this document, and that's something that you will see if you try to release. And so the system will now warn us about the fact that we need an approval process in order to be able to release the document. So I will now send the approval request. There we go. And once that you have sent approval request entries, you can always follow up on the entries. So I will exit the document. No, let's just check something. So once that the approval request is sent, you can see, by the way, that the status now is pending approval. So in that way, I know that the approval entries are sent and that we are waiting on an approval of my approver. Now, another thing that you can do is if I go to the search function and if I enter requests, so you have requests to approve, or you also have the approval request entries. So if I go to the approval request entries, you can see now the entries that have been sent to be approved. So here you can see, for example, the third and the fourth line are of the document that I just created. And you see that when you send an approval request, the first thing that happens is that you're approving your own document. And now it's sent to Stephen, which is my direct approver, as you can see here. Okay, so let's go and have a look at how Stephen can now approve. So now you can see that I'm logged in as Stephen. So here in the status bar, you can see Stephen's account. And based on the notification setup, Stephen might have received an email or a notification in the role center. And he knows that he has to process a document, a purchase order, and see if he can approve it. So Stephen can also go now to the requests to approve. So if I click here, you can see now that Stephen has 2 requests to approve. So 2 purchase orders waiting for him to be approved. Now, Stephen, of course, wants to find out a little bit more on these purchase orders, so we can see some details. But of course, he wants to have a look at the purchase order itself. So what is Koen trying to order? What are the prices? Are there any discounts? And so on and so on. So you can, of course, very easily open the record. So Stephen can now have a look at the record. So Koen wants to order 15 chairs. And based on the information that he sees, he can now take an action. Now, the actions that he can take is, first of all, he can, of course, approve. He can reject, or he can delegate. And you can also enter some comments if you want. Now, you can take the action from the document itself or from the approval request entries. So here you can see the same functions, so the same actions available. So suppose now in this case, I would like to approve this document. So I will click on approve. There you go. So the document or the line is being removed from this list. And now if I go back, so now if I go to the web client in which I'm logged in as Koen or Platan, and if I go to my purchase orders, so purchase order 1, so the one that I just created, so let's look it up, here it is. You can see now that the purchase order is released. So it is approved, so which means that I can continue working on the order, and I can, for example, post the receipt of the items or send the order to the vendor and so on. You see, so that's the first thing, a first scenario in which the purchase order is approved. Now let's create a second example. And also here I will create a purchase order, a new purchase order. So let's order from vendor 50,000 in this case. And we're ordering some more items. So a conference table which has a price of 328. And suppose that we need 20 of these tables. So now you will see that, let's take a little bit more because I want to exceed also Steven's approval limit. So now you can see that the total is 20,500, which means that we do not only exceed the limit of Koen, but also the approval limit of Steven. And let's now see what happens. So if I now click on Send Approval Request in the ribbon, you will see now that the approval request is of course sent. The document is again pending approval. And let's now check the request entries. So the approval request entries. And what you can see here now, and this is typically for the chain which we have set up for this for this workflow, is that first of all, similar to the previous example, and you can see this is all 26, I've approved my own document, and that's because I've sent the approval request. Then the system has created a request line for Steven, because Steven is my direct approver. So here the document or the status is open, which means that Steven should approve. But there is also already a line created for Vincent, because the system knows that the document doesn't only exceed my limit amount, but also the one of Steven, which means that if Steven approves, then it should go to Vincent. And this request line is already created. It's not open. It will only get the status open once that Steven will approve the document, which means that here you have a double approval, you see? So let's go and have a look. And I'm here logged in again as Steven. You can see that in the requests to approve, Steven has now a new document to approve. So he wants to check the document. He sees 50 conference tables. Seems quite a lot, but we don't have any stock of the conference table anymore. So let's approve the document. So Steven can now approve. There you go. And now if I go back here to my request entries. So now I'm logged in as Koen again, approval request entries. You can see now that Steven has approved, and that the approval is now open for Vincent. So let me now log in as Vincent. Okay, so as you can see now I'm logged in as Vincent, and Vincent should also approve. Now, based on the profile that is assigned to a specific user, for example, in this case, the accountant profile, you might have some queues in your role center, which is of course very easy and very convenient. So I don't need to use search functions or search within the navigation pane. So Vincent can immediately click here on the queue in which he sees that 2 documents are pending approval. So let's go and have a look. And there's the document 106.24 that should be approved, and then also the document 106.26, so the one that we just created of the high amount. And also Vincent, of course, would like to have a look in order to see if he will approve the documents. So let's go and have a look. So I can go to the approvals where you can delegate, for example, or you can also have a look at the document itself. So here in the document, I've opened the document. Again, I'm logged in as Vincent, and I'm checking here the document, so 50 tables, and Vincent does not agree with the document. Maybe the quantity is okay, but we should ask, for example, a line discount based on the number of tables that we are purchasing and so on. So Vincent has reasons to reject the document. So Vincent can use then the reject function, but first enter a comment. So for example, ask discount. So I will enter a comment so that if you reject, the user that has created the document also knows why you rejected. So I will click on OK. And now I will reject the document. So the document is now being rejected. Now, what is rejecting resulting in? So let's go and check. So here you can see the document that was being rejected. So I can go to the document now, and you see that rejecting will result in a status of open. So the status is open again, which means that I can make the necessary modifications. So I can make modifications because when rejecting, I was notified of the fact that the document is rejected, and I could read the comment in which I could see that we should ask a discount. So this means that I can make modifications, so I can change, add discounts and so on. And after adding the discount, I can send the approval request again, you see? So now we're back at the beginning of the approval chain. So Stephen will have to approve, then Vincent will have to approve again, and so on. And so that's another example in which you can not only approve documents, but also reject documents. Now, the last function I would like to show is cancel approval request. So this is also a specific function that could, of course, be very useful and necessary also. So I just send the approval request, but now I see that I forgot to enter the correct invoice discount amount. So basically what I can do then is cancel the approval request. So I will cancel the request. So now it has been cancelled, which means that the status is open again, and my approvers will also be notified. Because when sending the approval request, they got a notification, Koen wants you to approve a document. But then afterwards, if they go to the document, they see that it's open again. And by canceling the approval request and notifying the approver, they know that we have sent a cancel, you see. So this is a specific function. So I can now enter the invoice discount amount, for example, 1,000, there we go. And then again, start all over again and send the approval request. You see, so these are a couple of very useful functions that you can use in the approval workflow of the purchase orders in this case, but it's of course similar in other purchase documents, but also in other sales documents.